For the first time in a long time, the NASCAR Cup Series is heading to a short, flat track this weekend. And for me, when I run my model for each race, the tracks at which it tends to perform best are the short, flat tracks. So New Hampshire, Phoenix, Richmond, Martinsville, those tend to be the spots where my numbers work the best. So I'm always excited for these races, but we haven't had one since April. So it's a question of, will it still be good, knowing that we haven't been to a track like this in quite some time? It's possible teams have improved since then, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm excited to see how things play out for this week. And I think we've got a pretty good read on who will compete. So we'll break things down and get you set for DFS in New Hampshire. Welcome on into the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, here to preview this week's Foxwoods Resort Casino 301 in New Hampshire. Lock is set for 3 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. And the starting order has been set. So as we go through the podcast for today, you can fill out lineups as we go and get those things set in advance of Sunday's race. But first, a quick reminder to make sure you are subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. Wherever you get your podcasts, we've got PGA podcasts each week. Also, UFC with Austin Swain. That should be up tomorrow morning, so make sure you check that out by subscribing to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, or if you win some money, leave us a rating and review as well. Hey, soccer fans, this season, FanDuel and Captain Morgan are teaming up to give you a one-of-a-kind soccer contest. Introducing Captain Morgan Soccer Pick'em, a weekly fantasy contest that is entirely free to play. The contest is simple. All you have to do is make quick predictions for Saturday games this soccer season. You will earn points for each correct pick and compete for a chance to win up to $3,000 in prizes every single week. Head over to FanDuel and enter the Captain Morgan Soccer Pick'em today. Must be 21 plus to participate. For more details, visit FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel Fantasy app. Eligibility restrictions apply, and don't forget to make game day more delicious and sub in the captain. Let's take a look at the track breakdown for this week in New Hampshire, and it's a very different track from Atlanta because Atlanta is high banked, it's fast, it's a 550 package, whereas New Hampshire is slower, it is flat, and it's the 750 package. So very different tracks, but the overall strategy for this race is going to feel very similar for DFS, and that's because the race length is similar. There are 260 laps. There were 260 laps last week. There are 301 this week, which leaves us 30.1 FanDuel points for lap leaders. And that is more than enough for us to feel good using drivers up front if we think they can lead laps. And I think that we do need to prioritize getting laps led into our lineups. We talked last week about getting in 3 drivers with the ability to lead laps and maybe win. And I think the same is in play again for this week. Our most similar race this year was at Phoenix back in March, and that perfect lineup had 3 drivers with salaries of $10,000 or higher. Only 2 of those guys actually led laps, but basically what we're doing is we're giving ourselves more darts to throw at the board. If we roster 3 drivers who could potentially lead laps, we're giving ourselves more chances to correctly identify the drivers who control the race. And for me personally, I would love that extra dart. I know I'm going to get stuff wrong, but if I give myself more chances, then the odds that I accidentally stumble into being right are higher. So for me, the default build this week will be 3 drivers who I think can lead laps and squeeze out a top 5 finish at the end of the day as well. Similar to last week, we will be able to use the waves approach here. Of the 8 most likely winners in my simulations, 5 of those drivers are starting 10th or lower. So 5 out of 8 starting 10th or lower. And that means those drivers are not going to lead laps early on, but they can still win the race. And that's why we want to use the waves approach. We use a wave 1 driver starting near the front who can lead laps early. Then we can use a place differential guy or a wave 2 driver deeper in the pack to lead laps late and push for a win. That waves approach worked out well last week, and I'm on board with it again this week so that I'm not sacrificing those early laps led. It does work out sometimes where the guy who leads laps early has trouble and doesn't finish well, so it's not always like a must, but my default build will be I have at least 1 driver up front in most of my lineups. I also do want to clarify that we don't have to go this route. Like, I use the waves route when I want to utilize a driver starting deeper in the field. The most likely winner for me this week is Denny Hamlin. He's starting 6th. Second most likely winner is Martin Truex Jr. He's starting 2nd. There's no waves element to that, and that's fine with me. I will use both guys in the same lineup. The waves approach is something to utilize if you want to use someone who will not lead laps early on. You have full leeway to use two guys at the front if you want, if you think that they will be the guys who contend for a win, and there are more than enough laps led for us to do that. In last year's race in New Hampshire, there were 2 lap leaders in the perfect lineup. They started 2nd and 4th. In the Phoenix race earlier this year, the 3 drivers at $10,000 or higher all started inside the top 10. So the waves approach is an option, but it's not a must. The lone must is making sure you have a guy up front who can lead laps and run out front and shoot for a win. As far as the value plays go, we do have some guys starting deeper in the pack who can get some place differential, but similar to Atlanta, we're going to have to be okay with lower salary drivers starting in the front half of the field because of the top 20 drivers in projected average running position for me, only 3 will start lower than 18th. Those guys are Ross Chastain in 20th, Eric Almarola 22nd, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in 29th, but none of those guys ranks higher than 14th in projected average running position for my model. So your choices are slim, and the finishing upside there is okay for those guys. If you want good finishing points, which you do, because you get points for that, they will likely need to come for the most part from drivers at the front of the field. We'll talk about some exceptions to that later on, some guys who can get you some place differential, but this is not going to be a race where we lean heavily on place differential. We want to get laps led upside from our studs and good finishing upside from our values, which is naturally going to push us towards the front with some exceptions here for this race. As far as which races to emphasize when trying to decide which drivers to use, New Hampshire is a short flat track, as mentioned. That is the 4th race this year on a short flat track. The other 3 were Phoenix, Martinsville, and Richmond. Those are the tracks I will be leaning on most heavily to decide who will be fast. After that, it's just overall performance in the 750 horsepower package. That adds in Nashville, Dover, and Darlington. Maybe Bristol Dirt Race if you want to in there, but it hasn't correlated as well to how drivers have run elsewhere. So to me, first of all, I'm emphasizing Phoenix, Richmond, and Martinsville in that order, and then I will go Nashville, Dover, and Darlington after that. So to recap for this week, you need at least 2 lap leaders in every single lineup, and I want 3 for mine to try to get a third crack at a potential lap leader for this race. You can use the waves approach, but basically just ensure you get 1 driver at the front who can lead laps early on. Then you have flexibility with where your second driver is starting. So basically using the waves approach gives you flexibility with the second guy. If they're starting 6th, cool. If they're starting 16th, also cool. Totally fine. For value plays, you will have to have some drivers close to the front. There are some place differential options, but we have to be comfortable using guys closer to the front once again this week. And then finally, emphasize the short flat tracks when looking for high quality plays. But after that, emphasize the 750 package overall on the ovals for the secondary races for this week. So the question is, which driver's best fit what we're looking for this week? Let's do that now by checking out the tier-by-tier breakdown based on the salaries over at FanDuel.com. The elite tier this week is Kyle Larson at $14,000 through Chase Elliott at $12,000. And it's really hard for me not to be drawn towards Joe Gibbs Racing this week. Primarily, that's Martin Truex Jr. and Denny Hamlin. Kyle Busch is also in this tier, but he has been better in the 550 package than the 750. Truex is starting 2nd. Hamlin is in 6th. They have been 2 of the 3 best cars in the 750 horsepower package this year. You could argue the 2 best, but I think just 2 of the 3. The 2 of the top 3 guys for sure. Truex has actually won 3 of the 6 non-dirt oval races in this package. 2 of the 3 were on short flat tracks. He also led 100-plus laps in 2 of the races he did not win in this package. He did that in Bristol, and I believe in Richmond, the other one, where he led a bunch of laps but did not win. So I think that we need to have Truex number 1 in this tier. Hamlin is 2. His average running positions on the short flat tracks have been 4th, 2nd, and 2nd. He finished on the podium in all 3 races. Plus, he was awesome in New Hampshire last year. He's a 3-time winner here. My win simulations do have Hamlin as the more likely winner, but Truex is starting 2nd, which means he has better access to laps led. So for DFS, I will go Truex 1, Hamlin 2. I wouldn't write off Kyle Larson. I know he has not been as good on the short flat tracks, but he had plenty of speed in Phoenix. He just had to work his way through the field a couple times there. So to me, it's Truex 1, Hamlin 2, Larson 3, Kyle Busch 4, Chase Elliott 5 in this upper tier on FanDuel for this week. The second tier is Brad Keselowski at $11,500 to Ryan Blaney at $10,500. And I mentioned before that Truex and Hamlin have been two of the three best cars in this package this year. The third guy is Joey Logano. He ranks second behind Hamlin in aggregate average running position in the 750 horsepower package on non-dirt ovals, and second on the short flat tracks. Also did win in Bristol in this package, despite it being dirt. The short flat tracks specifically have been awesome for Logano, not just this year, but also last year. He had a top 3 average running position in both Phoenix and Richmond. He led 140 laps in Phoenix, which is awesome. He is a former New Hampshire winner. It was, I think, in 2014, so quite a long time ago. But he finished 4th here last year. He had a 6th place average running position, so that's good. I think Logano is a tremendous under-salary potential lap leader at $10,800. And I would say for me, I want one guy in the upper tier and then Logano as my second stud for a cash game, given that he does have some place differential and can lead laps. So Logano, pretty much a cash game lock for me on Sunday. Kevin Harvick is starting 12th, and he is $11,300. I cannot tell you the last time I was excited to use Kevin Harvick, and I might not use the word excited here, but I'm open to it, which is a deviation for me. He ranks 3rd in my model's projected average running position. He ranks 5th in my win simulations at 9%, and he has been much more lively in the 750 horsepower package than he has been elsewhere. He has led just 10 laps in this package, and his best finish is 5th. So that's why I'm not going to go too crazy here, but I am open. I would say I am as open to Harvick this week as I've been pretty much the entire year. So this tier to me is ranked Logano 1. I will go William Byron 2 because he's starting 16th. He's been good overall in this package. I will go Harvick 3rd, Blaney 4th, and Brad Keselowski 5th. He's been slipping recently, and now obviously it's been confirmed he'll be leaving Penske at the end of the year. So I'm okay being a bit lower on Keselowski due to the narrative, but also because he's not been good in this package. So Blaney and Harvick above him as well. The mid-range is Alex Bowman at $10,000 through Eric Almarola at $7,500. And I want to start here with a guy who will not get you place differential, but I think that he's in the same mold as Kurt Busch and Tyler Reddick last week, where he can pay off even without place differential. That guy is Christopher Bell. He's starting in 9th at $9,000, and I think he's going to push for a top 5 here. He was awesome on this track type, and this track specifically in the Xfinity Series. Won here twice in New Hampshire. 8 of his 16 wins in the Xfinity Series came on short flat tracks. Plus, he has 3 top 10s in 3 similar races this year. He was 4th in Richmond. I want to be overweight on Christopher Bell in tournaments this week. I will include him as a 3rd stud at times, but also like he is just a high quality play in general if I wind up in this range. So even if I'm not leaning on Bell to lead laps, I still think that the finishing upside for him is good enough to still be really aggressive with him for this week. Again, similar to Kurt Busch and Reddick from last week. The big place differential guy in this tier is Eric Almarola. He is starting back in 22nd. He is $7,500. He has tremendous track history here, and it's not just when he's been with Stewart Haas Racing. He actually had a couple of top 6 finishes here when he was in terrible equipment with Richard Petty Motorsports. He has had a top 9 average running position in all 3 races here with Stewart Haas Racing, and plus, he's been good on similar tracks even this year when SHR has been bad. He finished 6th in Richmond. He came through the pack a couple of times in Phoenix. He had a ton of speed in Nashville, which is another flat track. So I am very in on Almarola here. I would say I mentioned Logano as a cash game play. Almarola might be the second guy I go to there outside of the studs. I think among the value plays, Almarola is the primary cash game option for this week. I'm going to rank this tier: Almarola 1, Christopher Bell 2, Matt DiBenedetto 3, Alex Bowman 4, Kurt Busch 5, and Tyler Reddick 6. I think that you can consider Reddick for sure, but the short flat tracks definitely not his forte as much as they are for Bell. So that's why he winds up being lower on my list. The value tier is Austin Dillon at $7,300, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. at $6,000. I do think we can get some place differential out of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. this week. He is starting back in 29th at $6,000. He has been good in this package. He has the best aggregate average running position out of anyone with a salary lower than $7,300. He finished top 15 in Phoenix and Martinsville. He was 17th in Richmond. And he's not terrible in New Hampshire. A couple of top 10s here. He has also been the top 15 in 3 of the past 5 races. So I'm in. You do have to put a cap on your exposure due to his massive volatility, but I do want to be there. And I think that Stenhouse, a high-quality play for this week, as much as that does make me very nervous for sure. Ross Chastain's pretty fun at $7,000, starting back in 20th. His performance in the 750 package has been awesome recently. He has had a top 16 average running position in 4 straight races, and one of those was in Richmond. He had decent speed on flat tracks in the Xfinity Series, really good in Nashville, finished runner-up there. So Chastain has some Stenhouse in him where he's pretty volatile because he is very aggressive, but he has upside to compensate there. So both those guys, to me, worthy of looks this week. I'm going to rank Chastain 1 in this tier. I'll go Stenhouse 2. I just think that the upside in Chastain's better. So I'll go Chastain 1, Stenhouse 2. Austin Dillon 3, even though he's starting 13th. Been pretty good in this package still. I am lower on Chris Buescher than usual this week because it seems like Roush Fenway Racing has been prioritizing the 550 package more than the 750 package. They are trying to zag while everyone else zigs. So I think that I'm okay with being lower on Buescher than usual this week based on the emphasis they are seemingly not putting on this track type. The punting tier is Chase Briscoe at $5,800 on down, and I do think we have guys we can turn to here. One of them is Daniel Suarez. He is starting 31st at $5,700. He does have 3 top 10s in this package, but they all came on either dirt or concrete. On the short flat tracks, Suarez has finished outside the top 15 each time. I think Suarez will get a lot of buzz. I've seen his salary on a different site. It is very high, which means they expect him to be very popular. It's a different scoring system, but that's going to translate to some popularity here for sure. Stenhouse is $300 more expensive, also starting in the back, and I might prefer Stenhouse straight up, and I think I'll be pretty alone in that. I could be wrong, but I feel like I'm going to wind up being underweight on Suarez in tournaments. I think he's a solid play, but I think that I do want to be over on Stenhouse, under on Suarez based on the way things shake out for this week. I said this before where I've been like, okay, I think I'll wind up being underweight on this guy and then just no one uses him for some reason. So maybe I'll wind up being over on Suarez. I'm not intentionally going under, but I think that my natural optimal exposure levels on Suarez will be lower than a lot of other people. So to me, it's Stenhouse over Suarez among the lower salary guys starting super far back. Among the punting options, the guy with the best aggregate average running position on the non-dirt ovals using 750 package is actually Bubba Wallace. He's starting 18th at $5,300. He had a really fast car in Phoenix. He was running top 10. Some strategy got in the way of that good run. It seems like the team has been making strides recently. So I find him pretty interesting. I prefer Stenhouse and Suarez for the place differential, but I will have exposure to Bubba Wallace this week. This tier to me is ranked Suarez 1, Bubba 2, Eric Jones 3. He's been pretty good in this package too. Good quality driver. Chase Briscoe 4. I am also down to have some Ryan Preece shares because he has a bunch of familiarity on this track. Good speed here last year. Starting 25th. He's $4,000. I will have a non-zero number of Ryan Preece lineups for Sunday because I think that he can be pretty solid here once again. So let's finish up with the win picks. And a little bit of pressure because we've been on a heater here for the lower salary guys. We got wins out of lower salary plays for Alex Bowman in Pocono, Kurt Busch in Atlanta. Christopher Bell in Road America finished second there. So some pressure. For this race, for the lower salary guy below 10,000, I will go Bell once again. I think he's had too much speed in this package and on this track type to ignore him. So among the lower salary guys, give me Bell. Then I will stick with my Sims and go Denny Hamlin among the higher salary guys to win this week. There's no more betting value in Hamlin. He opened at 9-1 on FanDuel. He is plus 450, I believe, as of this morning. So hopefully he got in before because there is no more value there. But hey, it's win picks. I can pick whoever I want. So we'll go Hamlin and Bell for this week. That is all that we have here for the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast for this Foxwoods Resort Casino 301. Should be a fun one again. Numbers tend to be pretty predictive on this track type, so excited to see how that cranks out, but also I'm just excited to see maybe non-Hendrick dominance continuing once again for this week. We'll see how that cranks out on Sunday. Once again, make sure you subscribe to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. If you have questions for me, I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JimSannes. And you can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcasts. Big thank you to everyone for tuning in for this week. Enjoy the race. Enjoy the 2-week break to the Olympics. We'll see you once again, I believe, for Watkins Glen coming up. Actually, I'm out that week. We'll figure it out. Anyway, we'll figure out Watkins Glen, but either way, I'll talk to you again in the very near future. Enjoy the break. Enjoy Sunday. Go win some money. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast powered by numberFire.